Karen's obsession with undermining my property escalated to the absurd. One morning, I discovered that she had taken it upon herself to label one of my barriers as ugly, ostensibly in the name of community aesthetics. What she didn't realize was that this barrier wasn't just any structure. It was part of a newly constructed judicial building on my property, a facility I had designed to ensure legal compliance and secure operations for the neighborhood. When I confronted Karen, she was unapologetic, waving her hands as if her authority as an HOA member legitimized her actions. "It's an eyesore," she insisted. "The community deserves better." I studied her carefully. Her confidence was always performative, built on the assumption that she could dictate taste, property, and access without consequences. But this time, the stakes were far higher than a mere fence or gate. I calmly explained the significance of the structure. "What you've labeled as ugly isn't a random installation. It's a judicial building. It's legally recognized, and any interference could constitute obstruction of a legal facility." Her eyes widened slightly, the first crack in her self-assured facade. The officers I had quietly informed in advance were ready to arrive if necessary, and the documentation I maintained gave me complete authority over the property. Despite the clear legal boundary, Karen attempted to escalate the situation. She called neighbors, attempting to rally support for her cause, and even dialed emergency services to claim some form of aesthetic violation. When the responders arrived, I presented the full set of permits, blueprints, and legal designations. The officers reviewed them carefully. Karen's outrage only intensified as it became clear that she had no authority, no legal standing, and no practical leverage. It was astonishing how she failed to recognize that her obsession with control had blinded her to reality. Every attempt she made to shame, intimidate, or manipulate me only served to expose her ignorance and overreach. By mid-afternoon, her claims were dismissed, and she left the property muttering under her breath, a mix of frustration and disbelief at her inability to dominate the situation. Watching her retreat, I reflected on the broader pattern of these encounters. Karen's repeated efforts to undermine my authority, through coercion, emergency calls, or public shaming, were all predictable. Each action followed the same script: outrage, overreach, and failure. I had learned to anticipate her, preparing documentation, legal recourse, and strategic positioning long before she attempted her next intrusion. The incident with the barrier also reinforced a crucial principle: appearances and perceptions are not authority. Karen had assumed that labeling something ugly gave her moral leverage. But in reality, her actions had no legal weight, no real impact, and only highlighted her lack of preparation and foresight. In contrast, I relied on law, documentation, and strategy. My calm, methodical approach allowed me to remain in control even as she floundered. By evening, the judicial building stood unaltered, its authority intact. Karen had been publicly exposed yet again, and the neighborhood slowly came to understand that her proclamations were mostly noise. Meanwhile, I could focus on maintaining the integrity of my property, secure in the knowledge that preparation and prudence would always outmatch rashness and entitlement. As I stood on the veranda overlooking the barrier and the surrounding grounds, I realized that Karen's interventions were predictable, her patterns exploitable. Every intrusion, every attempt at manipulation, and every emergency call could be countered with foresight and documentation. She had escalated from simple coercion to aesthetic interference, but each step only reinforced the lesson. Preparation, calm, and legal awareness always win. And in the quiet evening light, with the judicial building solidly behind me, I felt an unmistakable satisfaction. Karen had once again been outmaneuvered.